Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting our hands dirty, metaphorically at least. We're going into the deep end of resourceful car repair.
Yeah, this isn't some high-end shop with a tool for everything.
Not at all. We're looking at a 2011 Kia Carnival, a big, heavy vehicle, and a really specific job replacing the rear lower control arm bushings.
Which is already a tough job.
It is, but here's the real kicker, the thing that makes this so fascinating. The mechanic did this entire repair, basically, one-handed.
It's incredible.
So our mission here is to really break down the technical steps, the tool hacks, and just the sheer ingenuity it takes when you're working with that kind of limitation. It's a masterclass in knowledge over brute force.
It really is. And I mean, any mechanic will tell you this job is supposed to be done with a hydraulic press. You need tons of controlled force.
Right.
So when you swap that out for, a hammer and one good arm, your margin for error just plummets. We have to look at the steps you just cannot skip, no matter what tools you have.
Okay, let's start right there with the setup. Because the difficulty level is it's off the charts. You're under a heavy car, you've got limited mobility. How did that physical constraint shape the very first steps, especially around safety?
It just makes safety 10 times more important. The source material is super clear on this. First, wheel comes off, car goes on a jack, but, and this is the key, you absolutely have to put a robust stand under there as well.
Okay, so why the extra emphasis on the stand? I mean, we all know jacks can fail, but what about this job makes it so non-negotiable?
It's the dynamic force. You're not just lying there. You are wrenching on seized bolts. You are literally hammering on things, pulling on heavy parts. Any of that force could shift the car's weight, and if you're levering yourself with your elbow, like this mechanic was, a slip could be catastrophic. That stand is your bedrock. It's the only thing making it safe.
That makes total sense. Okay, so safety is locked in. Now, the repair itself, the next big hurdle seems to be that massive spring on the suspension. That's a lot of stored energy.
A huge amount. And you have to compress it to get the control arm out. The mechanic noted you could do it right before or after unbolting.
Okay.
But what's really telling is that even the specialty tool, a standard spring compressor, wasn't good enough for this Carnival suspension.
Wait, so the tool itself had to be modified?
Exactly. He had to adapt it, probably by adding some longer pipes or tubes to get the right length and leverage to compress that spring safely.
Wow.
That's a real moment in a home repair, realizing the tool you bought won't work, and you have to engineer a solution on the fly to handle potentially lethal forces.
Okay, let's get into the dismantling. Breaking loose a seized bolt is tough with two arms. How did he manage those big bolts, the 24 mil main nut and the 20 or 22 mil counterbolt with one hand? What was the hero tool?
Oh, the absolute MVP, without a doubt, was the impact wrench.
The nut driver, yeah.
Yeah. He said it himself. Without it, the job would have taken way, way longer. When you can't use your body for leverage, the raw rotational power of an impact wrench, it's the great equalizer. It just hammers that rust and seizing into submission.
The tool becomes your leverage. It makes perfect sense. So once the bolts were off, what did the old bushing actually look like?
It was toast. Completely destroyed. The source says it was severely torn on one side.
That's a classic failure.
That's the classic failure. The rubber's gone. The suspension is sloppy. You get noise, alignment issues. It was structurally gone and had to come out.
And now we're at the moment of truth. Torn, rusted bushing, stuck in its housing, and no hydraulic press. The ideal tool is miles away. You've got a hammer. How? How do you even start?
This is where it shifts from precision to controlled brute force. They used a big hammer, a mallet. But you can't just wail on it randomly.
Right, you'd wreck the whole arm. What's the technique?
It's all about alignment. You have to position the piece so your hammer strike is perfectly parallel with that metal sleeve inside the bushing. You're trying to drive the whole sleeve out, not just smash the rubber.
So you're using targeted force to overcome the friction.
Exactly. It's messy. It's loud. But without a press, it is your only option.
And I love this detail from the source. He mentioned the stubborn old part only gave up and popped out after he turned the camera off.
That is the universal law of auto repair, isn't it? The real struggle never makes the final cut.
It's so true. Okay, the old part is finally out. We're moving on to installing the new one. What are the must-do prep steps before you even think about putting the new part in?
Prep is absolutely everything here. The inside of that metal housing, it has to be spotless. You have to brush it, wash it out, and then lubricate it really well.
Just to reduce friction.
To reduce friction to almost nothing. Any little bit of grit or rust in there is going to make the job harder, and more importantly, it raises the risk of damaging the new part when you're hammering it in.
And that leads to the big warning about installation, right?
Yes, the critical thing to watch for is rolling the edge of the new bushing's metal sleeve. It's thin. If you hit it at an angle, it'll fold over like tinfoil.
And if you damage that edge...
The whole repair is worthless. You've created a weak spot, and the new rubber will tear itself apart in a few weeks. Game over.
So the quality of the part itself must be pretty important if it has to survive that kind of installation. What did he use?
He used Delphi brand bushings, ordered online from Amazon and eBay. And that's a key choice.
Why Delphi specifically?
It's a known quality brand. He's not using some cheap generic part. I think it's an insurance policy, A softer, cheaper metal might just deform completely under a hammer.
And the cost reflected that, too.
It did. The 2 bushings were nearly $100. That's a real investment. And it tells you he's prioritizing durability, which makes sense given the installation method.
But even with a quality part, he admitted the final result wasn't perfect, right? It was just a little bit off.
Yeah, he noted it was slightly imperfect, it's an honest admission. You just can't get the same perfect fit with a hammer that you can with a press. And that realization immediately led to a new project.
He decided to build his own press.
He did. Right then and there,
Yeah.
he realized he needed to eliminate the constraint for good. That's a real problem solver's mindset. This was hard. I'm going to build a tool so it's never this hard again.
I love that. Okay, but let's get to what you called the single most critical piece of information in this whole thing. The one rule that separates success from instant failure.
Right. This is it. The golden rule. You absolutely must not do the final tightening on the control arm bolts until the car is back on the ground and resting on its own weight.
So, wait, explain that. I'm in my driveway. The job's almost done. Why can't I just torque those bolts down while the car's still on the jack stand and be done with it?
Because you will guarantee failure. Think about it. When the car's in the air, the suspension is hanging down at its lowest point. The control arm is at an extreme angle. If you tighten the bolts there, you lock that rubber bushing into that stress-twisted position.
Ah, I see where this is going.
The second you lower the car, the suspension travels up maybe 4 or 5 inches to normal ride height. And that movement violently twists the new rubber against a bolt you just locked down. It'll tear it instantly.
So you've just destroyed your brand new $100 part and all that work.
All of it. Gone. You have to let the suspension settle to its normal position, and then you tighten the bolts. You lock it in its neutral resting state. That's the whole secret.
That is the ultimate knowledge over tools lesson. You could have $1 million press, but if you don't know that one fact, the repair is useless.
Precisely. This whole deep dive just shows that complex jobs are less about having every fancy tool and more about understanding the why, the physics of it, why things have to be done in a certain order.
And in the end, he pulled it off. Despite the one-handed work, the hammering, the tool mods, he got it done. The test drive was smooth, the ingenuity won.
The working elbow for leverage for the win.
For the win. And that brings us to our final thought. The mechanic's immediate reaction to this struggle was to decide to build a custom tool to solve the problem permanently. So here's the question for you to think about. What's the one constraint in your own life, a project, work, anything, that if you could solve it, if you could engineer a custom tool or a new strategy, would open up a completely different, better way of working for you? Think less about what you don't have and more about what you could build.